Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Gandhari Ki Giridhari Radhikaraman Giriju Ki Jai Ho. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Yasoda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjanan Soda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Yasoda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjanan Yasoda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Gopi Janabalava Givanidhari Yasoda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjanan Yasoda Nanjana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Om Agana Timirandasya Jananjana Sulakaya Chakshun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Namo Mahavandhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Vishe Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. First of all, I'd like to offer my heartfelt Puspanjali to the lotus feet of the source of all auspiciousness for me, my Harinam Diksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Māharāja, Srila Prabhupada. Second of all, to my Bhajan Shiksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Māharāja, our Gurudev. To Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Māharāja and the entire Guru Parampara, especially to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and his Madhurya Kadambini. Now today, September 29th, is a very, very auspicious day. So before we start Madhurya Kadambini, I would like to mention that it's Bhadra Purnima, which is a very special Purnima within Chaturmasya, because it's Visvarupa Mahotsava. And it's also the sannyasa festival day of Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keṣava Goswami Maharaj and the sannyasa festival day of Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. So how auspicious. So it's been explained by Srila Prabhupada and Srila Gurudev that Visvarupa Mahotsava is a special day It's a day that actually, after Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas, and he had started to go on tour of South India on the pretext of going to try and find his brother Visvarupa, who had left his previous ashram, his home of Jagat Mishra and Sachi Mata, way before Mahaprabhu had taken sannyas. When he was a small boy, actually, Visvarupa, his older brother, had taken sannyas and gone off. And of course his parents were heartbroken, but anyhow, he had done this because they were going to get him married and he didn't want to get married. He had been going to the school of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was preaching pure bhakti. And of course he's a Nitya Siddha anyhow, he's a parikar. But anyhow, the pastime is he decided to take sannyas and leave, which he did. Without any warning, he just left. And so after Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he decided, I'm going to go search for Visvarupa. So he was traveling, and he got to a town called Pandharpur. I think it's in Maharashtra, Pandharpur. And there's a famous deity there, Vittalanath. And Mahaprabhu was, he had worshipped Vittalanath, and he was dancing and singing, and he'd also taken prasadam at one Brahma's house. And then he heard some special news that in Pandharpur was Sri Rangapuri. And Sri Rangapuri is a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So that means this was a godbrother of his own guru. Ishwarapuri is the guru of Mahaprabhu. So it was the godbrother of his guru, was there in town, a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So he was so excited. So he went to the house of this Brahmin where Rangapuri was staying. And as soon as they met, they both exhibited unprecedented transcendental ecstasy. We can imagine what it's like for two personalities like this to actually meet. It took them a long time to be able to control themselves and actually have a conversation. They were absorbed in praying, actually. And Rangapuri could say, I can see that you must have a connection with Madhavendra Puri because of your symptoms. Because he didn't know at that time who Mahaprabhu was. And so then Rangapuri, he asked Mahaprabhu what his previous ashram was. And he had mentioned that he had come from Navadvip. And so Rangapuri started to narrate that he had visited Navadvip with his guru, Madhavendra Puri. And they had visited the house of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata. And they'd had the most amazing prasadam there. He had remembered, especially Sachi Mata, what a good cook she was and how she was like so loving to everyone, just like her sons, and she fed them both. And so then at this point, Mahaprabhu says, well, actually, I am from Navadvip, and Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata are my parents also, and Visvarupa was my older brother. And so Rangapuri, he relates that actually in Pandharpur, Visvarupa had attained perfection. He had taken sannyas there, actually, and he had traveled and preached, and then he'd come to Pandharpur, and he had attained perfection. On the banks of the river Bhima. There's a river Bhima there. And now, in one source, it says that Visvarupa entered the deity of Vittalanath. Another time it says he attained perfection, he attained samadhi. So anyhow, in Pandharpur, Visvarupa attained perfection. And he left this world like that. So Mahaprabhu, when he heard this, even though it was Chaturmasya, normally, up until this point, he had always observed the full 4 months with not shaving, not clipping his finger, and completely following the rules and regulations of Chaturmasya. But when he heard this news about the sannyas and the attaining of perfection of his brother, he shaved. That's why we shave on this day, because Mahaprabhu himself shaved on Visvarupa Mahotsava in honor or in regards to his brothers taking sannyas and to attaining perfection. Now, some people say that this is a day that Visvarupa actually took sannyas and attained perfection. Other people say it's the day that Mahaprabhu just heard about it. Anyhow, it's a special day. And it's the day that Mahaprabhu shaved. So all the brahmacharis and sannyasis and grahastas in Gaudiya line they shave on this day. And they honor this day very much. So Visvarupa Mahotsava ki jai. Yeah. Now there's one other thing I wanted to say about Visvarupa Mahotsava, because it's very close to my heart and to the heart of all Śrīla Gurudev's followers, actually, Bhakti Gosvami Māharāja. Because on Visvarupa Mahotsava, in the Keṣava Gaudiya Math, I'm not quite sure when it started, but I came to live in India in 1989. So it started before 1989. I'm not sure how many years before that. But I came to live at ISKCON Vrindavan. And I came around Radhastami time. And as we know, this Visvarupa Mahotsava is just a few days after Radhastami. So I'm newly here. And after Mangalartik, I hear an announcement that Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj is inviting all the ISKCON devotees to come to the Keṣava Gaudiya Math to observe Srila Prabhupada's sannyasa festival and the festival sannyasa of his guru, Bhakti Prajnana Goswami Maharaj. So I joined the ISKCON devotees. I knew nothing. I didn't really know who Gurudev was. I didn't know. I was just new, and I was been an ISKCON American. I wasn't the type that really knew any of the history. But anyhow, I went because everyone was going. And we went and we had a huge festival at the Keṣava Gaudiya Math in celebration of Prabhupada's sannyas festival. Now, we had never had a festival for Prabhupada's sannyas in ISKCON Los Angeles, where I was. We knew he'd taken sannyas, but we really had no history of it, at least as far as I know. Maybe some of the senior devotees did, but I didn't really know anything. I'd been a devotee about 17 years at that point. And so I was really amazed. The temple was packed. It was so packed. It was so beautiful. So this was my first introduction actually to Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj. It was on this day, Visvarupa Mahotsava. And then after that, every year we kept having ceremonies like this for Srila Prabhupada's Sannyas Festival. And I was very touched actually, because I didn't know Srila Gurudev at that time, because I had gone to the festival with a god sister of mine named Aditya Didi. She's passed now. She was a very senior Prabhupada disciple. And Srila Narayana was actually very impressed by her service to Srila Prabhupada. He had met her in Bombay when he went to testify in court on behalf of ISKCON when Prabhupada's relatives were trying to take ISKCON away from ISKCON. So he went and testified of the validity of Prabhupada's sannyas, like this, and so that they could not claim his inheritance because he was sannyasi. He had given up his family. And ISKCON won the case because of Srila Narayana Maharaj's testimony. And she had gone to the court with him every day. Anyhow, during this festival, it was packed with all these important, ISKCON leaders and all the devotees and everyone. It was packed. But after the festival, Srila Narayana Maharaj went in his tiny little room, and all the ISKCON leaders went in there. And all of a sudden, Aditya and I were kind of standing over in a corner somewhere. We hear that, Srila Narayana Maharaj is calling for Aditya Didi. So I didn't go with her. She went in the room with all these important persons. And Srila Narayana Maharaj, he told these leaders, he said, you should always take care of her. She's a very senior devotee, and she's old. You must always take care of her. And when she came back and told me this, I was so touched at how he had been so personal with her, and how he had instructed them, you please take care of her, like this. So that was my first real introduction to Srila Narayana Maharaj, and I was very impressed, actually. So then year after, actually after that, then I started actually hosting the festival. He asked me to host Prabhupada's appearance day, disappearance day, and Visvarupa Mahotsava, so I did that. So then, so this Visvarupa Mahotsava has a special place in my heart, that's for sure. And actually to all the ISKCON devotees, they should understand how well disposed Srila Narayana Maharaj was and is to all the devotees, like that. He never stopped that festival, even though, as we know, after 1995 there were a few politics, but anyhow, we still kept having the festival, like that. So also on this day, in 1940, the guru of Śrīla Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami, officially took sannyas. Now it's very interesting because before 1940, and this is after his guru Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta had entered samadhi. So this is after. But before that, many times actually Bhaktisiddhanta had wanted to give him sannyas. 2 times actually he had personally, and even the danda was made, everything was made, but then the temple, I think he's the manager, whoever it was, I forget what his name was, he begged Bhaktisiddhanta not to give Binod Bihari, which is what his brahmachari name was, sannyas, because that would maybe that the protection and the maintenance of all the mats would be disturbed, because he was in charge. Binod Brahmachari, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, was in charge of taking care of all the mats, and he was very, very prominent and important personality. So they thought his taking sannyas might disturb this service. So then again he was going to be given sannyas by Bhaktisiddhanta, and then again someone begged, please don't. And then in a dream after that, after his guru had left, he had a dream that Bhaktisiddhanta came to him and said, my whole mission is being ruined because you haven't taken sannyas. And then finally in 1940, he had another dream. This is after he had established the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. It was after Janmashtami in 1940. He had a dream that Bhaktisiddhanta actually came to him, and in the dream, the whole ceremony for sannyas was given. Even his sannyas name was given, Bhakti Keshav Maharaj, in the dream. And after the name was given, then there was a big, maybe they blew conch shells, something, and it was a loud noise, and he woke up. And the whole ceremony had actually been done in his dream by his guru. So then he realized, I must take sannyas. Finally, I must take sannyas. So right after that, on this day, Visvarupa Mahotsava, he went to Katwa. And he had his godbrother, his beloved godbrother, Śrīla Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, gave him sannyas. Chanted the sannyas mantra, and Bhakti Budev Shroti Maharaj is also there doing the, I think the Jagya, whatever you call it. So those 2 godbrothers were very much instrumental in him actually taking physical sannyas. But there's another also incident that was way before, in 1925, as we know, when he was a young brahmachari. His Guru Maharaj was preaching so heavily against the bogus Brahmins and the bogus caste Goswamis, and just preaching pure bhakti. And who is a pure Brahmin, who is really a Vaishnava, who is a Goswami. And so many of these so-called Brahmins and caste Goswamis, etc., Sahajis, they were very much upset by this. And they saw how popular he was becoming, Bhaktisiddhanta. He was a lion, he was just... and speaking the absolute truth, and everyone was starting to come to him. So they had decided to kill him. And they were on Navadvip Parikrama, and they were at Prodamaya, which is on the other side of the Ganga, not the side of the Yoga Peeth, but the other side, Prodamaya over here, in Koladvip. And the Parikrama party came, and this is like a town, a little village, more like a little town. And so on the roof, all these personalities had gathered with all kinds of broken glass and everything. They were throwing them on the Parikrama party, and they were trying to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And at that time, Binod Brahmachari, he very, very expertly, he guided Bhaktisiddhanta into a I think it was a house. I can't remember if it was a house or a store, whatever it was. And because he looked very much like Bhaktisiddhanta, he exchanged clothes with him. He took Bhaktisiddhanta's danda and his sannyas clothes, and he gave him his just, I think he was a white-clad brahmachari. Gave him his common clothes, and somehow or other they expertly got Bhaktisiddhanta away and over back to Mayapur. And Binod Brahmachari, he just faced everything. But fortunately, finally the police came, and it was all, and nothing happened to Binod Brahmachari. But at that time, in one sense, he had felt that his guru had given him sannyas at that time too. So he has quite a mystical procedure for Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Maharaj taking sannyas. Quite a story. And then later, one of his bosom friends, actually our Srila Prabhupada was a bosom friend of Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj. They'd known each other for a long time. And in fact, Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj, if I'm right, I think it's in Allahabad. I think it's Allahabad. He had actually lived in Prabhupada's house, because Prabhupada was a householder and he had some houses. And even Bhakti Rakshak Goswami Maharaj had stayed. And they had a very intimate relationship with Prabhupada did with both Bhakti Rakshak Goswami Maharaj and Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj. And they would discuss philosophically things like this. And it was very, in fact, Prabhupada considered Bhakti Rakshak Goswami like his Shiksha Guru. And he also held in high esteem Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj. So then much later, after they had had these, he had stayed with Prabhupada in Allahabad. I can't remember what year that was. Prabhupada, as you know, his businesses failed, his marriage failed, everything failed. He even went to Jhansi and that failed. But he sent his Mahaprabhu from there to the Keṣavji Gaudiya Math. So until this day, Prabhupada's Mahaprabhu is in the Keṣavji Gaudiya Math. He donated. So then, at that time, 1959, Prabhupada went to Mathura all by himself, penniless, nothing. And he was staying somewhere. And Srila Bhakti, our Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj heard about this. So he went and took him and he said, you cannot stay like this. You must come to the Math here. This is your home. We're your family. You have to come. So Prabhupada went with him to the Keṣavji Gaudiya Math and stayed there. And and he was publishing his magazines and he was giving classes and he was having very nice conversations with our Gurudev. And then shortly after that, Srila Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj, his dear godbrother, came. And they had a very intimate relationship. But one day, Srila Narayana Maharaj, because he kept telling Prabhupada, you should take sannyas, you have to take sannyas. And he himself was already a sannyas. And and then Srila Narayana Maharaj went to his Gurudev and said, please, you must give sannyas to him. So Srila Bhakti Prajna Keṣava said to him, you've lost everything. Everything's gone. So just take sannyas, you know. And they had a joking relationship too, but also very serious and sober. And there was another godbrother of Prabhupada there in the Math at the time named Sanatan. He was 90 years old. And he told Prabhupada, if you take sannyas, I'll take sannyas too. So both Sanatan Prabhu and Abai, Charanaravinda, took sannyas together on this day in 1959 for Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Goswami Maharaj. And Srila Narayana Maharaj was the priest, and he showed him how to put on his clothes and made the danda, and Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Maharaj gave him the mantras and did all the proper procedures. And Krishnadas Babaji was there doing Hare Krishna mantra the whole time, kirtan. And when Bhakti, after he got his name, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Bhakti Prajna Keṣava Maharaj asked him to speak, give a lecture. And even though everyone there was, Hindi, Prabhupada chose to speak in English because his mission and his instruction from his Gurudev was to speak in English, write in English, and spread Krishna consciousness in English, go to the Western world. So as soon as he became sannyas, he started speaking English. Yeah. And so then he started preaching, and then after that he came to Radha Damodar, and we know he went to the West. So it's a very auspicious day, especially for us Westerners, because this is a day Prabhupada really, really firmly made the vow of speaking in English, preaching in English, and it wasn't long after that. 59, he left in 65, only 6 years, maybe even really 5 years, and he was off to America. He had been at the Radha Damodar writing in English, like this, but after 5 years, really, 6 years, he was ready to go. He went, he begged from Srimati Māharāja, a place on her steamship, and he went off as a sannyasi to conquer the West, you might say, conquer Maya Devi's kingdom. And he was highly successful. So, Jai, we're very, very fortunate to actually participate in Visvarupa Mahotsava and the Sannyas Festival Day of Śrīla Bhakti Prajnana Keṣava Gosvami Maharaj and Bhaktivedanta Swami Māharāja. So it's been quite a while since we really spoke about the Madhurya Kadambini, but I did want to get back to the Madhurya Kadambini, and way back, I think it's about a month ago. It's been quite a while because I had a few health challenges. We more or less finished the 7th shower of Madhurya Kadambini, which is Bhava. And we spoke about the bestowal of Bhava, how Bhava descends. Bhava is not something that we can that we can manifest ourselves. We can become qualified to receive Bhava from someone who has Bhava, meaning our Sri Guru, who has that Bhava. We can become qualified. We learn about this. But it's not until Sri Guru actually bestows his mercy in the form of awakening the Bhava that's already there in our heart, then this Krishna Rati Bhava manifests. And we talked about the different, the 5 different Ratis or Bhavas, Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya, Bhava, Rati, like this. And how we have a Sthai Bhava, our own Bhava, which is a main Bhava, which is either in Madhurya or Vatsalya. We have a one that doesn't change. This is our permanent Bhava. This is what our spiritual body is made of. It's our mood of service. That's our Krishna Rati, our Krishna Bhakti Ras, actually. But it's a potential, and it becomes manifest at the level of Bhava by the mercy of Sri Guru. And the Guru that has the same Bhava that we have, like this. So it's not a coincidence that we come to the line of Rupa Goswami. It's not a coincidence. We come to that line because the Bhava of Rupa Manjari is the Bhava that is latent in our heart. And so will become manifest by the mercy of our Rupanuga Gaudiya Vaishnavas and our Rupanuga Guru, like that. And then this Bhava mixes, as we heard, with these other subordinate bhavs, anubhavs, sattvika bhavs, sanchari bhavs, like the singing, the dancing, the weeping. These all come and they mix with our Madhurya Ras, Madhurya Bhav, and becomes our permanent Sthai Bhav, like this, Sthai Rati. And then and the heart is melting then, so melted, in Bhav it's melting. But when it matures, really matures, then it permanently melts and produces the fruit of prema, like this. So this is very beautiful. And it's not until we have prema, it's described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that we're actually accepted as a perfect sadhak, perfect devotee. Not until we reach prema. We're still in the process, even in Bhava, but at prema, then this is siddha, this is perfection, like this. So I wanted to just dip into the 7th shower because there was one thing that we didn't talk about, because it actually has to do with prema. So when Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing the maturing of our rati, which is the bhava, it's maturing, right? We've already gone through Shraddha, Nishta, Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha with Bhajana Kriya, Narta Nivritti, the Nartas have been cleared, right? And Nishta's coming, Ruchi's coming, Ashakti is coming, and Bhav has come. But then this matures. The Bhav becomes more and more and more mature and finally produces the fruit of prema. So that's described. Actually, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes a conversation that Mahaprabhu has with Rupa Goswami at this point, describing this process. And it's very beautiful. So I wanted to just read it, actually. And he says how this produces bhakti ras. At this point, when prema is coming, bhakti ras is coming. Krishna Bhakti Ras. And this Ras is astonishing and very relishable. So he quotes the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 19, 177 to 182, where Mahaprabhu is speaking to Rupa Goswami, Rupa Shiksha. So Mahaprabhu says, when one engages in sudden bhakti, then rati to Sri Krishna awakens within him by the mercy of Sri Guru. He doesn't say that, but we know it's by the mercy of Sri Guru. Then when Sri Guru condenses, becomes more and more condensed, it is called prema. When prema matures itself, prema is maturing then. We're stopping there. Then what do we get? Sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, mahabhav. These are the more and more maturing of prema. And as we know, mahabhav is the topmost, and it's embodied in Srimati Radhika. This is the topmost. She is Prem Guru, the embodied Premamayi Radhe Radhe. She's just distributing this prem everywhere. So, Mahaprabhu says, this is what's beautiful. This is what I wanted to speak about. This gradual development of prem may be compared to different states of sugar. Sugar, sweet sugar. He says, the sugar cane seed. First you have a seed, right? Then from the seed you get a sugar cane. Then you get sugar cane juice. You make the juice. Then you get liquid molasses, more thick. Then you get solid molasses, that's like gore. Then you get sugar, granulated sugar. Then you get candy. Then you get rock candy. And finally, lozenges. This is the ultimate stage of sugar. So he says, in the same way, all these states of prem, starting with Daibhav of Krishna Bhakti Ras, when they mix with the Vibhav and all these things, they can be likened, they are as relishable as nectar. It becomes so relishable. And he says it's likened to, now this is really beautiful, it's likened to mixing yogurt, sugar candy, ghee, black pepper, and camphor to produce a very, very sweet nectar called rasala. Rasala. So he's very beautifully describing this whole process as a very, very sweet nectarian, relishable, astonishing drink called rasala. How beautiful. This is Mahaprabhu's teaching Rupa Goswami. So I just wanted to share that since it was Vishal Chakravarti Thakur had included it in the seventh shower. So now we're moving on to shower 8, which is called prema, which is called the ultimate fulfillment of the soul's yearning. Finally, at this stage, prema. The soul, which down here, we have the seed, we have the potential, but we're yearning and yearning, and when we're covered in ignorance, we don't even know what we're yearning for, except we know it's love. Somehow or other, everybody in the material world is yearning for love, and they make the mistake of trying to find it here. Oh, I'll love my dog, I'll try and love my wife, I'll try and love my mother, I'll try and love my country, whatever it is, but everyone's miserable. But still, everyone's yearning for love. So we hear, and then by some great good fortune we found out, in the beginning of Madhurya Kadambini, what happens? We get the mercy. The Madhurya Kadambini starts showering. This is the mercy coming from the cloud bank of Mahaprabhu's mercy. The showers come down, what? In the form of his devotees. His devotees who have bhakti, who have prema. And they start showering, and what happens? By some great good fortune, we meet a premi bhakta. Or even one of his devotees. Even one of his devotees who introduces us to him. Like we may have gotten a book of Śrīla Prabhupada from one of his disciples. But in that way, we were brought to Srila Prabhupada. That's when there's so many Premi devotees. Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Goswami, he traveled the world like this, also. Or so many came to India and met Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Māharāja. Oh, I'm talking about the Western world now, of course. And all the Indians in India, they met so many disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. All in the Rupanuga Varga, because they're carrying this Braj Bhakti Ras in their hearts. They're carrying this, and so they're distributing. And so what happens? If we're fortunate, we got Shraddha, isn't it? The awakening of Shraddha. The Bhakti Lata starts to finally sprout. Our potential starts to have the potential to manifest the fruit of prema. So the Bhakti Lata starts. And we got 2 leaves, if you remember. We had the 2 leaves of Kleshagni and Subhada, meaning the burning up of all miseries, miseries, going. Subhada, the awakening of auspiciousness came. We had these 2 leaves. They came, or are coming, like this. And then from that, we got Sadhu Sangha. We got Bhajana Kriya, Narjana Vritti, Nishta, Ruchi. And then what happened? On the Bhakti Lata, finally, the buds of a Shakti came. This has been a bit of a struggle. And we're still struggling, trying to get there. Trying to be tolerant, patient, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarodapi Suis, Manina Manana Kirtaniya Sadahari. That's our necklace. Tolerating, being humble, giving all respects, chanting. And finally, a Shakti, these buds. And what happens then? At that point, when Sri Guru, when Mahaprabhu, they shower their mercy, then of course, as we talked about, the flowers of Bhava, they come from the buds, right? And these flowers, what is it here we see? Oh, they're encircled by all kinds of leaves. But it's not these leaves, it's different. These leaves are more shiny, more soft, more wonderful. And what are they? They're the anubhavs. They're all the emotions that come in Bhava. Like the singing, the dancing, the tears, the shivering, and even the Sanchari Bhavs, like, the pride or the fainting, so many things. These anubhavs, they're circling all here. And then by this, as the heart becomes more and more melted at this stage, and what is the melting? We'd already heard about what the goal was. The goal is we want to attain Krishna. We want to do what's favorable for Krishna. We want to have this intimate, loving relationship with Krishna. Before it was intellectual, now it's actually becoming spontaneous. And so at this point, the heart finally fully melts. Fully melts, and prema, the fruit of prema, manifests. How extraordinary. How extraordinary. And the rest of this shower, we'll be reading about the different symptoms, the different, how Krishna reveals himself. Because prema, the reason why prema is, well, there's so many anyhow. One of the reasons why, of course, we want to reach prema, is that is when finally, this is just on a kind of a personal level, that's when all of our anarthas are finally 100% gone. Not until this level. We heard that the anarthas from pious and impious activities, that they're gone in a Shakti. The anarthas from seva and all this are gone at Ruchi. But the anarthas from offenses are not 100. The fragrance isn't gone until prema. Finally, complete anartha nivritti. And what happens then because of that? And that only comes actually when we get darshan of Krishna. When we actually get darshan, because in prema we finally get darshan. You see? And one finally becomes qualified what? Finally, but we want to hear about this because we're looking for love, right? And we're not going to be satisfied actually until this little. Why? Because we become a Premi Bhakta. And more than that, we become a Braj Basi. More than that, we'll become a maidservant of Srimati Radhika, Prem Guru, and we'll assist her in her service to Radha and Krishna. We'll be so qualified. We'll be trained up by the Sakis, by the Manjaris, by everyone, Lalita, everyone. We'll be accepted by them. And finally, we'll be able to enter into Vichalila, into the Leela of Radha and Krishna and serve them in their Leela. This is the goal. To become qualified to serve in the Leela of Radha and Krishna, Rasa Leela, That is, even Prabhupada said, we're trying to become, enter the dancing party of Radha and Krishna. This is why we're chanting. To enter the dancing party of Radha and Krishna. That's our goal. But we can only have that when our prem is mature. So we'll hear about the maturing of prem in the rest of this shower. And how we finally become qualified to actually assist in the pastimes. And it's not like, now I'm able to assist Radharani in the Rasa Leela, and that's that. What's amazing is it's ever fresh. It's ever fresh, ever increasing, ever new. And we're learning new and new things. And it's more and more astonishing, more and more relishable. The spiritual world finally becomes our home. Permanent home. There's no way you can fall down. No way. Because why? Because we're held up by the chit ball of our Sri Guru, who has given us so much mercy. He's taken us from hell, takes us all the way back home, back to the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Offers us a lotus flower at their lotus feet. And because our Sri Guru has so much power, so much strength, they're not ordinary. We're ordinary souls. We're so tiny and insignificant. We have no power, really. So we need this chit ball, this powerful mercy of Sri Guru to hold us there. And so we're always a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, like this. And we're always the maidservant of the maidservant of the maidservant, like this, always. And we're very happy in that. We're very happy. So that's that. This is the aim and object of our bhakti, of our practices, our sadhana and bhajan, isn't it? And so what is described in this first part of the eighth shower is that prem becomes very condensed. It becomes condensed ananda. Sun, what do you hear? It says a sun, how do you say it? Sandananda Visheshatma. It becomes condensed bliss. That is the major characteristic of prem. And the subordinate characteristics are that in prem, a phenomenal, amazing characteristic of mamata, meaning Krishna's mind, Radharani's mind, this mindness, they are mine. Jugal Kishore are my life and soul. They're my everything. Whereas before, what had happened? My wife is my life and soul, my nation, my dog, my body. This finally becomes transformed, all that rubbish, and we find out who really is our life and soul. Always was, actually, but we were ignorant, had no idea of who our life and soul are. And it becomes not just an intellectual understanding, because we can pray, oh yes, Radha Krishna, you're my life and soul, but do I feel it? No, in praying, though, we feel that. Because by that point, we're completely selfless. There's no desire for our own happiness. Zero. And so therefore, the spiritual bliss, ananda, becomes so concentrated. Because that's the gift that's given. When one selflessly gives us, surrenders selflessly, and serves and just wants to serve with their own praying, with their own love and affection, then Radha and Krishna become so happy. And they bestow so much mercy, and it's like this. And so Prem bestows the sweetness of Krishna and Srimati Radhika, and bestows the sweetness of our relationship with them, our service to them. And there's a very beautiful verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I can't remember the Bengali. But it says, Prem makes Krishna dance. Prem makes the devotee dance. And Prem dances along. So all three are dancing together. This is back home, back to Godhead. And it's ever fresh, ever increasing in love and affection. And once one attains Prem, this ananda that one feels, which is not of this world, makes the four material goals of life, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, look like so insignificant. They're just, what to speak of just, the dog and the sun, totally insignificant. When we find, so we need to hear about this. That's why we're doing, because I'm totally unqualified to speak about praying. I'm still down here in Anartha Vritti, right? But we need to hear about this so that we won't just compromise ourselves for lifetimes staying here trying to be happy in sense gratification, even within spiritual life. In spiritual life, we can go on chanting Hare Krishna for unlimited lifetimes and not get out of the material world until we finally, Bhakti Siddhanta has a beautiful article, I think it's called Raising the Temple of the Bhagavat. And in there he expresses, until you finally surrender to Sri Rupa, you surrender to Sri Rupa and follow Sri Rupa, then you can get out. Not until then. And that means really surrender. Really surrender to Rupa Goswami and all of his everything. And then finally, Sri Rupa Manjari, like this. So we need to hear, why should we do that? Well, what's the point? What am I going to get out of it? Because at this point, we're very selfish. If we don't get something out of it, we're not going to want to do it, right? So, we got to be motivated. So then we find out, you hear about the wonderful pastimes of Radha and Krishna, that are there in the Bhagavatam, the Rasa Leela. It's astonishing when you read about, or in any of Rupa Goswami's books, his Lalita Madhava, you read, or Don Kelly Chintamani. You go on Braj Mandal Parikram and you find out all the amazing pastimes here in Braj. And this, we don't even know the half of it. And how happy all the Brajbasis are in assisting Radha and Krishna in their loving affairs. Then we think, well, that sounds a little bit more pleasurable than what I'm experiencing down here. And then we find out, but you can't get there with material desires, and you can't get there wanting your own happiness. Okay. This is going to be, okay. This is serious stuff. This is serious. I'm going to have to make a sacrifice here. I'm going to have to be transformed. My real self is going to have to be awakened, like this. So this is Prem. Prem is the ultimate goal of life. So we'll stop here. Okay. And Vanchakalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhubhircha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
Jai Sri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radhika Raman Ki
Jai.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhattavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhattavinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Ganga Giridhari Ganga Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radhika Raman Jaya Radhika Raman Radhika Raman Jaya Radhika Raman Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Hari Bol.